Well, here's the latest skinny on what's going on in the state of Minnesota. The governor there, Tim Walz, who could have been the vice president of the United States, has indicated that he is not, I repeat, not going to run for re-election in 2026. Now, is he going to be charged with a crime? Well, that's not for me to call. That's prosecutor's deal. But if you were wondering about that so-called scheme up in Minnesota, where $1 billion worth of taxpayer money, that's your money and my money, was flittered away in some various organizations that were scamming the United States government. Well, it turns out there were 3 such scams that were going on, and I thought I would fill you in on those scams and how they work. But you have to understand something up front. Minneapolis has a population of about 428,000. But of that, roughly 80,000 to 100,000 are Somali individuals. So when you look at it, they make up about 18 to 20% of the voting block, potential voting block in Minneapolis. Now, when you have 18 to 20%, you want to get elected in Minneapolis to anything, you've got to have that block, just to keep you in mind what's going on here. So here's how the whole thing started. A group was created, a nonprofit group was created by a Somali group, and they called Feeding Our Future. And they went to the state offices, the welfare offices, the state social services office, and said to them, hey, we're starting up this group. We want to feed poor Somali children who aren't getting fed. And keep in mind, like I said, they're a big voting bloc. So they went to the state services and said, yes, this is what we want to do. We want to set up places where children can get fed, Somali children. So they literally gave them some money. Welfare officers says, okay, here's $1 million. I think it was 2.6 million. And they said, okay, fine, we're going to go to various businesses in Somali-owned businesses, and they're going to start giving out food to kids, starving Somali kids, at these various businesses. Well, as it turns out, that was the first year. Ultimately, from starting out about $2.6 million, about 6 years ago, 7 maybe, the amount had increased to $100 million a year. And the number of businesses that said they want to set up and feeding Somali children had drastically increased. But it turns out that no children were being fed. All these store owners were doing, these Somali-owned businesses, were taking the money and pocketing it and buying whatever they wanted to buy. So, Feeding Our Future. That was the group that started this. That was scam number 1. Then scam number 2 came along. Housing for homeless. Now, another nonprofit was started up. Okay, keep in mind, got one nonprofit, got another nonprofit started up. Housing for the homeless. And so what they did was they went to the state welfare offices and the social services once again, and they said, hey, we want to get housing for homeless people in the Somali community. They need housing. 2020, they got $2.7 million. 2021, 1 year later, that amount went up to $21 million. And then 42 million, then 74, and ultimately it went up to $104 million a year to feeding or to provide housing for the homeless. Trouble was, there wasn't any homeless housing. That's what was done. So now you had 2 scams going on, and they're raking in money, and people are getting money in the Somali community. And then a third scam came along, and this one was a doozy. Turns out the lady who was behind this, her name was Asha Fardan Hassan. Now, she was also the lady that started out the feeding the hungry children, the Somali job. She was part of that group. She started that nonprofit, started this one. And this one was incredible the way she did it. They're medical professional people, okay, in the Somali community. They once again go to the providers, which is the state, the welfare office, social services, because the social services people, they get the federal money, the taxpayer dollars, and they divvy it out in the state to people that need the money. All right. So Ms. Hassan and her people went to the social service office again, being a member of the upstanding member of the Somali community, and said, "Hey, you know what? We need to take care of autistic children. We want to do this, and the Somali children, we need to take care of them." So they went around looking for autistic children in the Somali community. Couldn't find many. That was a problem. And they were getting money. They started out with roughly $3 million back in 2018. $3 million. Couldn't find any Somali children of any amount. So they started going to Somali parents. Said, "Hey, here's the deal. You let us certify your child is autistic, and we will pay you anywhere from $400 to $1,500. You let us certify your kid is autistic." Now, you're a Somali parent, you're living, however you're living. Someone offers you between $400 and $1,500 just to certify your kid's autistic. They're going to hand you money. What are you going to do? Chances are pretty good you're going to take the money. And people did. So, original in 2018, $3 million. 19 went up to $54 million. 2020, $77 million. 2021, $183 million. And then $280 million. And then back in 2023, it went up to $400 million a year to take care of autistic children. Because so many children were suddenly coming up with autism, families were being paid and people were pocketing the money. $400 million. Now, you're probably sitting there going, what? Didn't anybody check on this? Didn't anybody research the stuff and go out and have the welfare workers go on the field? Hey, let me see the housing you're doing. Let me see the feeding places you're doing. Let me see the autistic children. Let me see some of that. Turns out they did. That's correct. Employees of social services actually started going out and looking at that to see what they could find. And they found massive fraud. Massive fraud. So, what do? You take it upstairs. You take it to the people above you. You take it to the head people. Usually that's, the offices where they have flags on the walls and flagpoles sitting down, right? Well, they did. But here's what happened. The group from the Feeding Our Future. Remember the original ones I told you about, Feeding the Future of the Kids? That lady Hassan who started this thing? She contacted social services by email and by voicemail, and the emails they have, and said, here's the deal. You take away our money, and we are going to file a lawsuit. And that lawsuit, we are going to we are going to say you are racist against Somalis. You are the racist of the racist. You are xenophobic. And we will sue you, and we will take this public. And we will make sure the media is on this because they're going to be on our side. And they're going to say, you as state officials, you government officials, you are suffering from severe racism, but you won't help the poor Somalis. And they did. So what happens? Well, so the government people, the social services folks, they said, hey, we can't, we got to take this upstairs. And they took it all the way to the governor's office, and apparently that's where they took it. And the auditors on this thing, the auditors who actually did the auditing on this, the legislative auditors said, if we do this, if they go through with this, it's going to be negative press for the state of Minnesota, and it's not going to look good. And those 80,000 to 100,000 Somalis that we have in Minneapolis, heck, they make up 18 to 20% of the voters. Wouldn't be good negative press. And then a fraud investigator was brought in, and the fraud investigator said, hey, this could create political backlash. We will not get ourselves elected. We won't win any election in the state of Minneapolis or even in the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis if we fight this. So, what happened then? The employees said, okay, fine, we're going to the gov. They went up to Governor Walt's office and said, hey, here's what's going on, gov. What are you going to do? We need to get this thing done. they're cheating, they're lying, they're threatening lawsuits. And you know what the governor did? Retribution against the employees. He threatened them in every way, shape, or form. Said, how dare you do this? You better not do anything. You better shut your mouth and not say anything. And fear of retaliation and fear of losing their jobs. That's where it stands, folks. That's what's going on. This is what the prosecutors are indicating. And now Governor Tim, has announced that he is not running for re-election in 2026. Just to bring this circle back around. Not running in 2026. Why? Because maybe, just maybe, he's going to be suffering a fraud charge and intimidation of the employees. But the documents are there. The state employees. Oh, and the last thing you need to know about. A TSA employee in Minneapolis has now come forth as a whistleblower and said she saw gentlemen from Somali ancestry going through the airport at MSP with briefcases full of cash. Because obviously at TSA, they know this stuff. If something doesn't look good, they check it out. Suitcases full of cash. Now, they couldn't stop them because it wasn't weapons. It was just cash. And they're taking it to Al-Shabaab. That's the Somalis that are shooting at Americans and over in Somalia, shooting, and we've had to kind of take them on. The ones shooting at the ships, bombing and everything else. They're being funded by taxpayer money. Your money, my money, is going to Al-Shabaab as they have discovered. That's what's going on in Minneapolis, folks. Is it bad? Well, it certainly looks that way. Will anything happen to this because it's political? I don't know. But here's something you better know. If this continues, it won't be in just one city in America. It will infiltrate itself to other cities with other populations saying they got it done there. They can get this stuff. We're going to try it in our city and threaten lawsuits and racism if it happens in that city. It could start in one place and could very well progress to other cities. And now you know.